off? Nah. In Charles Townsend's book Terrorism, A Very Short Introduction, the third chapter, The Reign of Terror, Eugene Walter's pioneering work on terrorism focused on the operation of power in the primitive societies to challenge the liberal assumption that naked violence can never result in stability of a political regime. This was because it was important to recognize the role of violence in politics. The French Revolution was the pinnacle of terrorism, leading up to modern-day terrorism, with the Crusaders or Millennials waging holy wars against the infidel. This was characterized by the Reign of Terror, where the assumption was that social order could be changed by human agency. The problem with this issue is that it was framed in absolutes or opposites. Those considered counter-revolutionaries were labeled as monsters, ferocious beasts, leeches, and other slander because of their opposing beliefs. This provided an ideological charter for the most extreme actualities, but must have been somewhat justifiable. In November of 1793, when the counter-revolutionary rebellion at Lyon ended, the goal was the extirpation of fanaticism, that is, the extinction of religion. Purge and extirpation is what permitted massacres like the assaults on the rebellion by the Republican Army, which was labeled as genocide. Three motives that can be identified in doing this were vengeance, intimidation, and purification. Done so through punitive will, the more general the level, the more violence occurred to promote presence, and the violence was not personal, but a means of recognition. In red, black, and white terror, the question remains whether this was a constituted system of regime or terror. Because of French Revolution's unprecedented use of violence was a model created for multiple centuries of terrorizing the mass public. The comparison of Stalin and Hitler was used to observe whether their acts were considered terroristic or just inhumane acts of violence or genocide. Hitler was very focused on the concept of purification, but not of virtue, just blood. Arendt touched up on the fact that these forms of terrorism were used to make the victims feel isolated in an attempt to attract these people to join their movements. Townshend attempted to portray the origins of terror in this chapter.